I was about to transfer my company to my son. My daughter-in-law smiled and handed me a cup of coffee. The housekeeper accidentally bumped into me and whispered, "Don't drink it. Trust me." I secretly switched cups with my daughter-in-law. 5 minutes later, she had a reaction. They thought they were so smart. They tried their best to destroy me, but they had no idea what was waiting for them. Justice would be served. Before I tell you what happened next, in that ambulance, drop a comment and let me know. Where are you watching this from? I need to know this story is reaching people who need to hear it. My name is Vincent Callahan, and at 69 years old, I thought I'd seen every kind of betrayal the business world could offer. I was wrong. The worst betrayal was waiting for me at home, disguised as a family meeting on a Tuesday morning in October. I'd built Callahan Development Corporation into a $22 million real estate empire here in Greenwich, Connecticut. The Colonial on Round Hill Road had been mine and Eleanor's for 30 years. She'd been gone for 10 now. But some mornings I still expected to find her in the kitchen. Marcus, our only child, had been working at the company for 5 years. Not exceptional, but he was family. That had to count for something. That morning, Dorothy Palmer had already brewed my coffee. She'd been our housekeeper for 20 years, quiet and efficient. But something was different today. Her hands shook as she arranged the coffee service. Her eyes kept darting toward the window. "Everything all right, Dorothy?" "Yes, Mr. Callahan. Too tight, too controlled," Marcus had called the night before. "Dad, we need to discuss the succession plan. It's time." He was 42, married to Lillian Sharp, with a chemistry background from some pharmaceutical company. She'd joined us as marketing director 2 years ago. They arrived at 10 sharp. Marcus in an expensive suit, Lillian carrying pastries and an insulated carrier with 3 coffee cups. "Morning, Dad." Marcus kissed my cheek, perfunctory like always. "Lillian brought your favorite. Dark roast from that new place on Newbury Street." Odd. Dorothy's coffee was already prepared in my favorite blue porcelain cup. But Lillian was setting out the new cups, smiling, that practiced smile. "You're so thoughtful," I said, accepting the cup. It smelled different, slightly bitter. We settled into my study. Marcus spread paperwork across the desk. "We need you to sign these today, Dad. Just formalities." I reached for my coffee. Lillian watched with an intensity that should have registered as wrong. That's when Dorothy appeared beside my chair, carrying a tray of papers. She stumbled clumsy in a way I'd never seen. The tray clattered, papers scattered. Her mouth was suddenly at my ear. "Don't drink it, sir," she whispered. "Please, just trust me." Her hand knocked my arm. Coffee spilled across the mahogany desk. Marcus cursed. Dorothy apologized profusely, knocking over more things. In the chaos, Lillian grabbed one of the cups, I couldn't tell which anymore, and took a long drink. "God, Dorothy," Lillian snapped. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Callahan." But Dorothy was looking at me, not Lillian. Her eyes held relief. 5 minutes of cleanup. Marcus irritated about ruined documents. Lillian dabbing at coffee stains on her blazer. Dorothy's warning echoed in my head. "Don't drink it. Trust me." Then Lillian went pale. It happened fast. One moment complaining about dry cleaning. The next swaying in her chair. "I feel strange. Honey?" Marcus moved toward her. "What's wrong? Dizzy. Everything's spinning." She tried to stand. Her legs buckled. She collapsed, and I saw it. The tremor in her hands, sweat on her forehead. Pupils contracted to pinpoints. "Call 911." Marcus already had his phone out, but his voice sounded rehearsed. "Yes, my wife. She's collapsed." Lillian's body went rigid. She convulsed back, arching, coffee cup shattering. Dorothy moved fast, turning her on her side. I knelt beside them, my brain trying to process. Food poisoning. Stroke, but Dorothy's warning kept echoing. "Don't drink it. That coffee. The one I was supposed to drink. The one Lillian had grabbed by mistake." The ambulance arrived 6 minutes later. Paramedics worked fast questions IV stretcher. They wheeled Lillian toward the door. I watched Marcus's face when he thought no one was looking. I'd spent 42 years learning to read people. It was how I'd built an empire. What I saw wasn't fear for his dying wife. It was calculation. The paramedics worked fast, but all I could focus on was Marcus across from me, phone pressed to his ear voice, cracking in exactly the right places. "I don't know what happened," he was saying. "She just collapsed." But I kept hearing Dorothy's whisper. "Don't drink it, sir. Greenwich Hospital's emergency entrance was 3 miles from home. The automatic doors opened with a hiss. They wheeled Lillian straight into a trauma bay. A doctor appeared, late 40s, dark hair pulled back. Her badge read, Dr. Judith Martin, Emergency Medicine. "What happened?" she asked. Marcus started talking. Coffee collapse convulsions. He was good at this. 42 years, and I'd never realized what a skilled performer my son was. Any known allergies? Dr. Martin examined Lillian's unresponsive form. None, Marcus said. Her pupils are severely constricted. Heart rate's erratic. She looked at a nurse. Full talk screen. CBC chem panel. And add arsenic levels. Now. Arsenic. Arsenic. Marcus's surprise sounded genuine. Covering bases. But Dr. Martin's expression told me she already knew. She turned to me. You were there when this happened? We were having coffee in my study. My housekeeper spilled it. There was confusion. Lillian drank from one of the cups. Which cup was meant for you, Mr. Callahan? The question landed like a fist. I don't know. It happened so fast. I'm ordering blood work for you, too. If that coffee was intended for you. She didn't finish. A police officer arrived while they drew my blood. Officer Rodriguez. Mandatory reporting, Dr. Martin explained. Suspected poisoning required law enforcement notification. Marcus shifted in his chair. Poisoning, that's insane. Nobody answered him. The results came back 90 minutes later. Dr. Martin returned with a tablet and an expression that told me everything. Your daughter-in-law has acute arsenic poisoning. Lethal dose. She's critical. My hands stayed steady. Business training. Never show weakness. And me? You have chronic arsenic exposure, Mr. Callahan. Consistent low-dose poisoning over approximately 3 months. We're starting chelation therapy immediately. 3 months? July, August, September. The fatigue I'd blamed on age. The nausea I'd attributed to stress. The confusion during board meetings. Someone had been killing me slowly. Today was supposed to be the day it finally worked. Who has access to your food and beverages? Dr. Martin asked. My son, his wife, my housekeeper. The detective will want to speak with all of them. Through the consultation room window, I could see Marcus in the hallway. Phone out, fingers moving fast across the screen. Texting someone. Destroying evidence, maybe. I'd taught him everything about business. How to read a balance sheet. Negotiate a contract spot. Weakness. But I'd also taught him without meaning to how to hide what you really felt. How to perform. He looked up. Our eyes met through the glass. For just a second, his mask slipped. Not guilt. Not fear. Just that same calculation. Like he was solving a problem. Planning his next move. My son. The boy I'd raised. The man I'd built a legacy for. I'd been a businessman for 40 years. I'd survived market crashes, hostile takeovers, recessions. I knew the difference between bad luck and deliberate sabotage. This wasn't an accident. This was murder. Premeditated, methodical, patient. And watching my son throw that pane of glass in Greenwich Hospital's emergency wing, one thought kept echoing through my mind: I was supposed to be dead. I found Dorothy the next morning in the hospital chapel. Alone in the last pew, rosary beads in her hands, tears streaming down her face. She looked up when my footsteps echoed on stone. Mr. Callahan, I'm so sorry. I sat beside her. The chapel smelled of furniture polish and old hymn books, scents that meant Eleanor. Sunday mornings, a life that felt impossibly distant. You saved my life, Dorothy. I should have told you sooner. Her hands shook. I saw her 6 weeks ago, Mrs. Lillian, in the kitchen before breakfast. She had a vial, clear liquid. Put drops in your coffee, stirred. It walked away like nothing happened. She pulled a small spiral notebook from her purse. Inside, 3 months of careful handwriting. Dates, times, observations. July 15th. Mr. C. complained of nausea. Mrs. L. in kitchen alone at 6:30 a.m. August 3rd. Mr. C. dizzy during phone call. Coffee prepared by Mrs. L. September 10th. Mr. C. confused in board meeting. Mrs. L. made coffee that morning. You kept getting sicker, Dorothy said. Only on days when she was here early, when she insisted on helping with breakfast. Her phone showed photos blurry but clear enough. Lillian at my kitchen counter, small vial in hand. Another Lillian's purse-open vial, visible inside. I recorded them talking too, my phone in my apron pocket. The sound's terrible, but you can hear. She played audio, muffled distant like listening underwater, but I could make out voices. Marcus and Lillian somewhere in my house. The final dose? Lillian's voice. When he signs the company over? Marcus. Another recording from a week ago. Symptoms are perfect. Just need him to trust us one more time. I sat in that chapel pew, listening to my son plot my murder. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. You loved him so much. You were so proud. I was afraid you wouldn't believe me, that you'd fire me and then I couldn't protect you anymore. Her voice broke. 20 years ago, my daughter needed surgery. Neuroblastoma. Stage 3. Insurance wouldn't cover experimental treatment. You paid everything. $400,000. You saved her life. She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. I couldn't let them kill you. I owed you my child's life. You didn't owe me anything. I owed you everything. The chapel door opened. A woman in her early 50s, practical suit badge on belt. Vincent Callahan. I'm Detective Karen Bradford, Greenwich PD. Dr. Martin said you might be here. We moved to a consultation room. Bradford recorded everything. Dorothy showed the notebook photos, played the audio. Her hands shook the entire time. Mrs. Palmer, why didn't you report this earlier? I was scared. Mr. Marcus threatened to fire me twice last month. Said I was too nosy. I thought if I accused them without proof. But you gathered proof. I had to. Bradford studied the evidence. Listened to the recordings 3 times. Finally looked at me. Mr. Callahan, based on this evidence, your son may be involved in conspiracy to commit murder. We'll need search warrants for your home, your son's residence, his office. She paused. Is there anything else you haven't told us? I thought about the cameras. The ones I'd installed 3 weeks ago when my businessman's instincts told me something was wrong. The cameras that had captured everything. Not yet, I said. Bradford's eyes narrowed. She knew I was holding something back. When you're ready, we'll need to know everything. That afternoon, I made a decision. Detective Bradford needed to know everything. I installed hidden security cameras 3 weeks ago, I said. We were back in the consultation room. Bradford's pen stopped mid-note. You what? Professional surveillance. Video and audio. My study and living room. Why didn't you mention this yesterday? I needed to be sure I could trust you. I'd called my lawyer, knew where I stood legally. I'm telling you now. Why cameras at all? Marcus pushed too hard for this meeting. Called 3 times in 1 week. Lillian's concern about my health felt rehearsed. I paused. I've read people for 40 years, Detective. My instincts said something was wrong. I wanted proof I was just being paranoid. And were you? No. 2 hours later, we reviewed footage on a laptop. Timestamped 2 weeks before the incident. My study. Marcus and Lillian alone. Lillian held up a vial. This is the final dose. You're sure about the amount? Marcus asked. It'll cause cardiac arrest within hours. By the time anyone tests for arsenic, it'll be too late. And it won't be traced. Oh, arsenic mimics heart failure perfectly. The coroner will see exactly what we want. She smiled. Cold. Clinical. Once he signs the company over, we do it that morning. Then it's ours. $22 million plus the insurance. More footage. Days of planning. Dosage calculations. Alibis. Marcus talking about selling the company immediately moving somewhere warm. Lillian researching countries without extradition treaties. When the last clip finished, I sat back. I watched this every night for 2 weeks. Kept hoping he'd change his mind. That my son would remember honor, loyalty. My voice cracked. He never did. Why didn't you confront them? Because I needed proof. And because I loved him too much to believe it. Until I had no choice. Bradford made calls. Got warrants. The searches happened the next morning. They found the arsenic vial in Lillian's office desk, hidden in a locked drawer. Financial forensics traced $500,000 moved from company accounts to Marcus's personal accounts over 8 months. Small transfers carefully structured to avoid flags. Then the insurance policies. $7 million on my life. Marcus as beneficiary. Taken out 8 months ago when the embezzlement started. When Lillian began asking about my health, my stress, my diet, Bradford called that evening. We're bringing them both in tomorrow. The evidence is overwhelming. What about Lillian? We'll question her when she's stable. She paused. Mr. Callahan, does your current will leave everything to Marcus? I looked out my hotel window. I'd checked out of the house. Couldn't sleep there anymore. Not anymore. I changed it 2 weeks ago. The day after I saw that footage. Changed it how, if Marcus betrays me, he inherits nothing. Everything goes to a foundation for elder abuse prevention. Bradford was quiet. So your son tried to murder you for an inheritance he'd never receive? Yes. Does he know? Not yet. I smiled without humor. But he will. Day 4. My lawyer slid a document across the table to Detective Bradford. The codicil is dated 2 weeks before the incident, he said. Bradford read aloud. Should my son, Marcus Callahan, be found to have committed betrayal through violence, theft, fraud, or attempted harm, the entirety of my estate shall be placed in trust for the Callahan Foundation for Elder Protection. She looked at me. You wrote this the day after you saw the footage. Yes. I couldn't let him inherit what he was willing to kill me for. So he murdered you for $22 million he'd never receive. That's the irony. He destroyed his life for nothing. Bradford's phone rang. She stepped out, returned minutes later. A woman just walked into Greenwich PI. Lisa Henderson. Worked with Lillian at Bellingham Pharmaceuticals. Says arsenic went missing from their lab 6 months ago. 6 months. Before the poisoning even started? Lisa Henderson was 43 nervous guilt across her face. I should have reported it sooner. Tell us what happened, Bradford said. Last March, our inventory showed arsenic trioxide missing, maybe 50 grams. Lillian had been asking strange questions. How long arsenic stays detectable? What tests show it whether heart failure masks poisoning? She looked at me. When I saw her picture on the news, I knew it was her. Security footage from Bellingham showed Lillian in the restricted storage area, March 15th. 2 minutes inside, leaving with lab coat pockets, fuller than before. This proves premeditation, Bradford said. 6 months of planning. The arrests happened 2 weeks later, Bradford called after. We took Marcus at 6 a.m. He asked to see you. What did he say? He wanted you to visit. Talk to him. I said nothing. Lillian's been transferred from the hospital to county jail. Both charged with conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, embezzlement, theft of a controlled substance. Bail denied for both. Trial's probably 6 months out. His lawyer will try to blame Lillian, I said. I know, but the cameras don't lie. 6 months later, I walked into Stamford Superior Court. The courtroom was packed media sketch artists, spectators drawn by headlines. The son who poisoned his father for millions. Marcus sat at the defense table in a suit I'd bought him last Christmas. His attorney, Richard Holloway, whispered something. Marcus nodded. Then he saw me, tried to arrange his face into remorse. But I'd watched those camera recordings too many times. I knew what real Marcus looked like. The bailiff spoke. All rise. Superior Court of Connecticut is now in session, the Honorable Patricia Morrison presiding. The judge took her seat. The jury filed in 12 faces that would decide my son's fate. Prosecutor Rachel Thornton stood. Your Honor, the state is ready. Let's begin. As Thornton outlined the charges, the systematic poisoning, the embezzlement, the insurance fraud, I thought about those hidden cameras. The footage the jury would see. Marcus and Lillian plotting my death in their own voices. My son had spent 8 months planning my murder, stole $500,000, took out $7 million in life insurance, slowly poisoned me for 3 months, and on that final day he'd handed me coffee with a smile, knowing it was meant to kill me. All for an inheritance he'd never receive. The codicil I'd written ensured that. Every dollar he'd tried to steal, every asset he'd killed for it, would all go toward protecting other families from people like him. Marcus wanted my legacy. Now my real legacy was making sure other sons didn't murder their fathers. I looked at the jury. 12 strangers who would hear the evidence, see the footage, learn the truth. Justice was about to be served. Day 3. The courtroom went dark as prosecutor Rachel Thornton started the video. Ladies and gentlemen, you're about to hear the defendants in their own words. Planning murder, laughing about it. The screen came alive, 20 feet high. My study. Marcus and Lillian, 2 weeks before the poisoning. Marcus's voice filled the room. I can't wait until the old man is gone. That company should have been mine years ago. I forced myself to watch. The jury needed to see my reaction to know that even now it destroyed me to hear it. Lillian on screen. His blood work will just show heart failure. Perfect crime. A juror gasped. Others leaned forward. Another clip. Marcus laughing. Tomorrow morning, by evening, we'll be millionaires. The laughing. That was what broke the room. Not just the words, but the joy in his voice. The happiness at my death. A juror covered her mouth. Another shook his head, staring at Marcus. Marcus kept his eyes down. Wouldn't watch himself plot murder. 10 minutes of footage. Dosage discussions. Timing. What they'd buy with the insurance money. When the lights came up, the courtroom felt heavier. Like everyone had witnessed something they couldn't unsee. The prosecution calls Dorothy Palmer. Dorothy walked to the stand in a navy dress, hands clasped. When she swore to tell the truth, her voice shook. Mrs. Palmer, How long did you work for Vincent Callahan? 20 years. Thornton approached gently. Did you observe anything unusual regarding Lillian Callahan's behavior? Dorothy described that morning 6 weeks before. Lillian with the vial. The drops in my coffee. My declining health. Why didn't you tell Mr. Callahan immediately? Because he loved his son so much. I was afraid he wouldn't believe me. That Marcus would fire me and I couldn't protect him anymore. So you gathered evidence? I took photos. Made recordings. Wrote everything down. I had to prove it. I had to save him. You saved his life that morning. I couldn't let them kill him. Tears streamed down her face. He saved my daughter's life 20 years ago. I owed him everything. The courtroom erupted in applause. Judge Morrison allowed it briefly before calling for order. Dorothy wiped her eyes, embarrassed. Marcus looked up, stared at Dorothy with hatred. The prosecution calls Lisa Henderson. Lisa took the stand. Explained about Bellingham Pharmaceuticals. Missing arsenic last March. Lillian's questions about detection methods, poisoning symptoms. You saw the security footage. Yes. Lillian in restricted storage. Her lab coat pockets were full when she left. What did you think when you saw the news? I knew I should have spoken up sooner. More witnesses. A financial analyst traced the embezzlement, $500,000 over 8 months. An insurance investigator found the policy's $7 million Marcus as beneficiary. Each piece built on the last. Systematic. Methodical. 8 months of planning stealing poisoning. The prosecution rests, Your Honor. Judge Morrison turned to the defense. Mr. Holloway? Richard Holloway stood. Expensive suit, practiced confidence. Your Honor, the defense will show that Marcus Callahan was manipulated by a woman with expertise in chemistry and psychology. That he was another victim of Lillian Callahan's scheme. I watched the jury. They'd just watched Marcus laugh about my death. Heard him say the company should have been his. Listened to him plan how to spend the inheritance. Holloway was going to blame everything on Lillian. Paint Marcus as weak, manipulated, afraid. But the cameras didn't lie, and the jury had seen the truth. Holloway stood before the jury, voice earnest. Marcus Callahan is not a monster. He's a man who fell under the influence of a sophisticated manipulator. A woman with expertise in chemistry psychology, someone who knew exactly how to control him. He was afraid. Afraid to refuse her. Afraid of what she might do. Prosecutor Thornton rose for rebuttal. Didn't raise her voice. Didn't need to. The defense wants you to believe Marcus Callahan was a victim. Let me show you what a victim sounds like. She played the footage again. Just one clip. Marcus's face filling the screen. I can't wait until the old man is gone. Thornton paused it. Does that sound like fear, like someone being forced? She played another. That company should have been mine years ago. Does that sound like manipulation or entitlement? She let the silence hold. Ladies and gentlemen, the cameras show us the truth. Marcus Callahan wasn't manipulated. He was eager. He was willing. He was greedy. And the only thing he regrets is that he got caught. The jury's faces said everything. Then came my turn. I walked to the witness stand, swore to tell the truth, looked at the jury, 12 strangers who would decide my son's fate. My name is Vincent Callahan. Marcus is my only child. My voice stayed steady. Business training. But my hands shook. I raised him to value honor, integrity, family loyalty. Somewhere along the way I failed. I don't know when. I don't know how. But I failed. I paused, looked at Marcus. He was staring at the table. The poison wasn't the worst part. It was watching him smile at me every day while he planned my murder. Sitting across from him at breakfast, discussing the business, believing we were building something together, and all the while he was killing me. Slowly, deliberately. My voice cracked. I installed those cameras hoping I was wrong, praying my son would remember the values I tried to teach him, that he'd choose love over money. I swallowed hard. He chose money, every single time. I turned to face Marcus directly. He finally looked up. Marcus, you didn't just try to kill my body. You killed the father who loved you. That man is gone. He died the moment I saw that footage. And he's never coming back. The courtroom was silent. I returned to my seat. Felt every year of my 69 years in that walk. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, their faces told me everything before the 4 women spoke. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder, in the first degree, we find the defendant, Marcus Callahan, guilty. Marcus's shoulders sagged. On the charge of attempted murder in the first degree, guilty. On the charge of embezzlement, guilty. For Lillian the same. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Judge Morrison's voice was formal, final. Marcus Callahan, Lillian Callahan, you have been found guilty on all counts. It is the judgment of this court that you be sentenced to life imprisonment, without the possibility of parole. Life without parole. My son would die in prison. They put him in handcuffs, led him toward the door. He looked back at me once, just once. I waited for something. Remorse, sorrow, some recognition of what he'd destroyed. But all I saw was rage. Not guilt over what he'd done, just fury that his plan had failed. My son was gone. He'd been gone long before Dorothy spilled that coffee. 3 weeks after the verdict, my lawyer executed the will Marcus had tried to kill me for. All assets of the Callahan estate, the $22 million development company, the Greenwich property, the investment portfolios, the commercial real estate holdings transferred into an irrevocable trust, the Callahan Foundation for Elder Protection. Marcus got nothing. When the prison chaplain informed him, they said he destroyed his cell, threw his cot against the bars, screamed until guards restrained him. They put him in solitary confinement for 72 hours. The chaplain visited me a week later. Professional courtesy, he said. He thought I should know that Marcus, sitting alone in that empty cell, had whispered to himself, "I killed him for nothing." There would be no redemption arc for my son. Lillian filed an appeal in June. The Connecticut Supreme Court denied it without comment. She remains in maximum security at York Correctional Institution, serving life without possibility of parole. I sold the Greenwich house in early May. Too many ghosts, I told the realtor. She nodded, understanding more than I'd said. Everyone in Greenwich knew the story by then. The poison, the housekeeper, the hidden cameras, the son who'd chosen murder over love. I established the foundation's headquarters in downtown Stamford, 3,000 square feet of modern office space, with accessible design, warm lighting, and a mission wall displaying our core values. Not a mansion, a workspace, a place where survivors could walk through the door and feel safe. Our mission was straightforward: protect elderly Americans from abuse, financial exploitation, physical harm, emotional manipulation, neglect, especially when the abuser was family. We offered legal aid, investigative support, emergency safe housing counseling services, and advocacy. Dorothy Palmer became our executive director. The woman who'd served me coffee and toast for 20 years now led a staff of 9 professionals, 3 attorneys, 2 social workers, 2 investigators, an office manager, and a community outreach coordinator. She'd saved my life by spilling a cup of poisoned coffee. Now she was building systems to save hundreds more. The transformation was remarkable. Dorothy, who'd once deferred to everyone, now commanded conference rooms. She negotiated with prosecutors, challenged defense attorneys, spoke at community forums. Her voice, soft but unshakable, carried the weight of someone who'd faced evil and refused to look away. James Mitchell called 2 weeks after the verdict. We'd been roommates at Yale 47 years ago, business partners for 15, and friends through every season of life. He'd attended Eleanor's funeral. He'd been at our company's 25th anniversary, and when Marcus graduated business school, James had been there too proud as any uncle. "I heard what you're doing, Vince," he said. I won in. He joined our board of directors and donated $100,000 to our startup fund. "You know what I've learned," James said at our first board meeting, looking around the table at Dorothy, our lead attorney, Sarah Brown, and our financial director, Michael Torres. "Family isn't who you're born to. It's who shows up when it matters." Dorothy met my eyes across the conference table. A slight smile, an understanding that needed no words. We were building something bigger than revenge, bigger than grief. We were building a legacy that couldn't be poisoned. Within 3 months, we'd intervened in 12 cases. 3 resulted in criminal prosecution. We'd recovered over $400,000 in stolen assets and relocated 7 survivors to safe housing. One case still visits me in quiet moments. Margaret Brennan, 76, a retired librarian from Norwalk. Her daughter-in-law had systematically drained her accounts for nearly 2 years, $200,000 gone. Margaret's son, working long hours in Boston, had no idea his wife was stealing from his mother. When we presented the bank records, the forged signatures, the shell company documents, Margaret's son wept. Then he called the police himself. Margaret came to our Stamford office 3 days after her daughter-in-law's sentencing. She took both my hands in hers, tears streaming down her weathered face. "You saved my life," she whispered. "Just like Dorothy saved yours." I looked across the room where Dorothy stood reviewing intake forms with Sarah. "No," I said gently. "We're just passing it forward." That evening, Dorothy brought 2 cups of coffee into my office. The rich aroma filled the space between past and present, poison and safety, family lost and family chosen. She set 1 cup in front of me, steam rising, warmth without fear. "To second chances," Dorothy said. I raised my cup to meet hers. "To chosen family." We drank together, survivor and savior, building something good from something terrible. Outside our windows, Stamford's autumn lights glittered against the dusk. And for the first time in a year, I felt something I thought Marcus had killed forever. Hope. 18 months after the verdict, I stood in our foundation's downtown Stamford office, watching the sunrise paint gold across Long Island Sound. The Callahan Foundation for Elder Protection had helped 83 families in its first year. We'd recovered over $3 million in stolen assets. We'd seen 7 adult children convicted of financial exploitation. Dorothy had testified before the Connecticut State Legislature twice, helping pass stronger elder abuse reporting laws. Last month, 60 Minutes featured her story, The Housekeeper Who Saved a CEO's Life, aired to 12 million viewers. Speaking requests poured in from across the country. I watched her now through my office window leading our monthly support group in the conference room. 12 elderly survivors sharing their stories, finding their voices again. Dorothy Palmer, once my housekeeper, now executive director of a nationally recognized nonprofit. Time magazine had just named her to their 100 most influential people in healthcare. She'd transformed her quiet courage into a movement. Morning, Vince? I turned. James Mitchell stood in my doorway, 2 coffees in hand. My old college roommate visited every Thursday now. We'd have coffee review cases talk about everything except business. Real friendship, the kind that doesn't keep score. Marcus sent another letter, James said, carefully setting my coffee down. The 9th one in 18 months. All unopened, stacked in my desk drawer. Still not ready, I said. James nodded. He understood. Some betrayals don't heal with time. They just become scars you learn to live with. My phone buzzed. A text from our social worker, Miguel Santos' new referral. 82-year-old man's son pressuring him to sell house. Strange financial activity? Feels familiar. It always did. Another case, James asked. Always another case. I picked up my coffee, Dorothy's special blend made with care every morning. Safe, warm. A daily reminder that some people choose loyalty over convenience. Dorothy knocked and entered reading glasses perched on her nose, iPad in hand. Vincent, the Boston Globe wants an interview about our expansion into Massachusetts, and Senator Warren's office called They Want You to testify about federal elder abuse legislation. 71 years old, and I was just beginning the most important work of my life. Schedule it, I said. All of it, she smiled. That same smile that had saved my life when she whispered, "Don't drink it." How's Lillian? I asked quietly. Dorothy's smile faded. Prison medical reported declining health. Kidney failure. She'll likely die there. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not pity. Just emptiness where my son's family used to be, and the new safe house. I asked, changing the subject. Opens next month. 10 beds. 24-hour security. We're naming it the Eleanor Callahan Memorial House. My late wife's name. She would have loved this turning tragedy into protection for the vulnerable. James raised his coffee cup. To the family we choose. Dorothy and I lifted ours. To second chances, Dorothy added softly. To justice, I finished. We drank together, 3 people bound not by blood, but by something stronger. Purpose, loyalty, love. Outside Stamford was waking up. Somewhere in this city, another elderly person was being exploited by someone they trusted. But today they had somewhere to turn. They had us, my real family. I'm 79 now. A decade has passed since Dorothy spilled that coffee cup and saved my life. When I look back on this true story, I see a man who confused success with legacy, who believed blood was thicker than character. I was wrong. Here's what this grandpa's story taught me. Don't ignore the warning signs when someone you love starts seeing you as an asset instead of a person. Don't wait until poison is in your cup to ask hard questions. And don't ever confuse loyalty with biology. I thank God every morning that Dorothy had the courage to act when I was blind to the truth. I thank God that He put someone in my path who valued integrity over comfort. And I thank God that He gave me a second chance to build something that matters not, a company worth millions, but a foundation that protects the vulnerable. The Callahan Foundation has now helped over 300 families. Dorothy was recently named Time Magazine's Person of the Year for Elder Advocacy. Marcus writes me letters from prison. I don't open them. This is a true story that still feels impossible, a grandpa story I never imagined telling. But if sharing this true story protects even one elderly parent from their own child's greed, then perhaps the betrayal had purpose. Real family isn't born, it's built. Choose people who choose you back. If this story moved, you please leave a comment below sharing your thoughts. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss another grandpa. Story that matters. And if you know an elderly person who might be at risk, please share this video. It could save a life the way Dorothy saved mine. God bless you all. And remember, trust, but verify.